Here on the Creative Thinker Podcast, we discuss all theories, philosophy, and thought behind the creative process. And we hope that you find some inspiration along the way.
Hello and welcome to the Creative Thinker Podcast. Today I am your host and I am bringing a very special interview to you today. Today we are going to interview the one, the only, Henry Moon.
Hey, hello everybody.
Yeah, like I said today, I kind of wanted to bring a little peek behind the curtains for Henry. We hear a lot about what Henry talks about, his thoughts on the creative process. But today I just wanted to, kind of shout out some of the exploits that Henry has been able to do. He's accomplished a lot. And he brings his experience, his theories here to the podcast. But I kind of wanted to get into some of the nitty gritty of Henry Moon. Before we get to that, are there any announcements that you wanted to do today?
I saw a movie that I really, really liked. And that's sort of my inspiration for this week, which is it's called Willy's Wonderland. It's a really good movie. Cool. It's Nicolas Cage, and all you need to know about the movie is two things. Okay, it's Nicolas Cage, and he has no lines, does not speak.
Oh, okay.
And then the second thing that you need to know is that at a certain point in the film, this is a bit of a spoiler, but at a certain point in the film, he curb stomps an animatronic gorilla on a urinal.
Well, if that isn't a spoiler or a reason to go and watch, what is it?
Willy's Wonderland. It's like these animatronic possessed robots that are terrorizing a town, and he's like a random passerby that really likes grape soda and kicking ass.
Well, I'll add that to my list of movies to watch. Solid.
One of my favorite things I've watched in a while. It was really good.
Solid. I watched the most recent episode of The Mandalorian, and it was super dope. And if you haven't watched it, I think it's the second episode this season, and it was a good one. So
Knights of the Old Republic drop. Man, that was dope.
Yeah, it was really, really good.
I didn't expect to be so excited about that, but I was.
Yeah, it was a really good episode, and really enjoy where they're going with this season. Aside from that, any other announcements that you need to make for the podcast?
Well, there's a couple things. We have a why can't I think of the word? Listener supported option now. So for less than a cup of coffee, if you shop at Starbucks or anywhere that charges you $5 a month exactly, then you can be a supporter of this podcast. And we need supporters, and we appreciate you, and that's why we can put as much effort and time into making content for you guys as we can. So that's a big deal, and it's a huge help anytime you can, anybody who wants to. So we are listener supported, and like I always say, lights, cameras, sound, everything. That goes back to you, the listener. So thank you so much. I also wanted to shout out Hesse, Germany.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Which is apparently one of our most listened regions of Germany. There's some folks out there in Hesse. I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciation, but thank you, those of you in Germany that are tuning in. It's been a while since I've shouted out a country on here.
Yeah.
That's one of our biggest listener supported areas, and super cool.
Yeah.
When I say creative thinkers all over the globe, I mean it.
Mm-hmm.
It's all over the globe. We have India, we have Germany, we have Norway, we have Cameroon.
Shout out to Cameroon.
Yeah,
number one listener spot for a solid while.
For like a year and a half. Yeah, hey. Cameroon was holding it down, man. So thank you to everybody. That's my biggest sort of announcement. Also, the YouTube is kind of blowing up. I say blowing up, but I mean, it's for not promoting it really anywhere other than here. We've got at least as many listens on our YouTube videos as we do on Spotify specifically. So, yeah.
So again,
Thanks
thank
so much.
everyone for looking at YouTube or listening on YouTube, listening on Spotify, Apple Podcast. We really appreciate all of you guys really listening. It means a lot to us.
Hell yeah. Yeah, that's why we do this, right?
Yeah. Well, speaking of why we do this, like I said, today we're going to be interviewing you, Henry, and just, again, getting a little peek behind the curtain of who you are, your creative process, some of the things that you've done in your life. So as we start, first question that I have for you is, what brought you into podcasting?
Well, let me start by saying I'm super nervous, and you had to talk me into doing this. And I appreciate you doing it, but this is so far outside my comfort zone. So if I sound more nervous than normal, it's because I am.
And this is my first time interviewing somebody, so I too am nervous. So enjoy listening to two nervous people talk.
Yeah, just a couple of nerds nervous in a room. Why are we doing this to ourselves? Okay.
So why do you do this to yourself, and what brought you into podcasting?
So podcasting, I got into teaching. I was starting to do like photography lectures, and I was getting into these really long conversations when I had my photography business that, quite frankly, I didn't have the time to do because I was earning money other ways, and so I kept getting into these really deep conversations about how I run my business, about my philosophies on life, and I figured if I dedicated 30 minutes a morning and just put it out there, then everybody who had those questions could go there, and I wouldn't have to have that same conversation 6 times in a day, because that's about where I was at.
Gotcha.
And then, like I said, I would go do photography lectures or whatever. I didn't do too many of them, so but anyway, I was busy, and I just wanted to have a little bit of my life back. And I also felt like in the artistic community in Austin, there just wasn't very much optimism or positivity, and there weren't too many people building, I don't know, a community. So it was like a lot of the artistic ventures at the time, and I think we're getting away from that now, but a lot of the artistic ventures at the time were more about the person putting it on, their ego, and who their friends were, and who they could get into the door, and how much money they could make. And none of it was really like, let's build a community, let's create art together, because you have to encourage people in order to pursue something as sort of groundbreaking as, you know, I was doing fashion stuff at the time. So like fashion in Austin, other than one entity, 1 week a year, pretty much dead. So it takes a lot of bravery to do that. And I didn't see a lot of people setting the groundwork.
So as you start talking about, you know, the photography business here in Austin, we're already going off script, but what brought you into photography? Like, how did you get into that world? Because it's something you've brought up quite a lot, you know, as an example. You know, you've seen the culture here and there, but how did you start in photography? Or I guess, you know, let's go a little bit before that. Like, what got you into taking photos originally?
There were a few things. I got a film camera when I was like 6 years old because my older sister got tired of it, and film was still cheap, and you could get it developed for like, I don't know, a couple bucks a roll at Walmart. So it was like a cheap, easy pastime for the kids. So so I got my first camera at like 5 or 6, and so I would just go around taking pictures of stuff. But there was a girl I had a crush on at the time that was one of my sister's friends. And even at the time, I remember thinking I was too nervous to actually say anything around her. I was like 5 or 6. So it's kind of a weird, like, I don't know, that seems early. But anyway, like I took a picture of her that was, I mean, she was just smiling, standing there. But it was like, that was exactly what I thought of her. And I was like, I could see her face when she wasn't around, and it sort of like kicked off this idea. I know it sounds creeper, but hang with me.
Yeah.
I was 5 also, so give me a little bit of credit. So I had this picture, this memory that I could keep with me, and I could also, give to that person, and we could both hold on to this memory that I looked at as a sort of perfect, beautiful moment of life. And that's what I've kind of taken forward. Anytime I become close friends with somebody, from then on, I would take their picture. And it was something like I had a box full of pictures of people who were meaningful to me in life. And when I got to college, I finally got to use my first fancy DSLR, digital camera, and it was amazing. It was so easy, and I could see the pictures right then, and it wasn't dying every 30 seconds like those little point-and-shoot cameras. And so I could afford batteries, and I could afford, actually taking pictures. And so my dad, I told him about the experience, and my dad found this a cheap camera at a pawn shop that was a DSLR, and I just started taking pictures. Like every free moment I had, I started taking pictures. And I was in college at the time. I don't know if I mentioned that, but
so what kind of pictures were you taking? Like nature pictures, pictures of people? I know you said early on it was pictures of people.
Like in college, it was anything. I mean, I just loved hearing the click. I mean, it was so fun, and I liked editing photos. And so I went from like taking pictures of things that, things that I saw every day that, so like when I would go to class or something, there'd be like one of those, it's not like a traffic cone, those metal yellow cones that keep cars from driving up on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
There was one that was like rusted out and had a dent in the side. And I saw it every single day I went to a class. I passed it. And every time I saw it, I was like taking that moment to remind myself it was going to be a good day. I'm getting through this class. It was one of the ones that I was having a hard time with my grades in.
Yeah.
And so it was like this affirmative post.
Yeah.
And so I would take pictures of stuff like that. I had those all around campus where I'd like remind myself, okay, don't forget your tennis bag for practice. Don't forget, so I had little reminders all over campus. So the first thing I did was take pictures of those. And then I just sort of always had my camera with me like junior, senior year. And people were like, hey, I don't want to spend money on senior photos. Like, can you take pictures of me? And then it was like, okay, well, you're in sports, and I'd be around the baseball fields and stuff. Like, so I'd take pictures of the teams, and then I'd send them to people just because nobody ever took pictures of me, or very rarely, playing sports. So I was like, yeah, this would be cool to have. I'll send it off.
Yeah.
And then, by senior year, people were paying me to take senior pictures for them. And it just took off from there because it started as a need of taking pictures of senior photos, and then it just continued as people from then on.
So is that the transition when you went from just taking pictures for fun and then starting to make money from it and then kind of continue down that path?
Yeah, for sure. I wasn't exactly like a brave artist at the time. So a lot of stuff, especially early on, was whatever worked out, and that worked out. So it was a very easy transition. I wasn't even trying to make it into a business. I was just like, okay, I can make $60. Sure, I'll make $60. And then I started working for Friday Night Tykes, and I made good money. Was a 6-month on, 6-month off TV show. So I had 6 months off, and I was like, well, this other thing I kind of enjoy, and I can make a little bit of money at, and it feels good to have some money coming in.
Right.
So it was sort of unintentional. I mean, how it came about.
So then from in college, Friday Night Tykes, how did you go from being an artist in I'm assuming the TLU area, correct?
Yeah, Seguin, Texas.
Seguin. How did you become an artist in Seguin, and then also going from Seguin to Austin? It's a pretty big difference. I feel like Austin's a pretty big city, and Seguin's kind of like a country city kind of out there. How did you make that transition from Seguin to Austin?
So it was Seguin, San Antonio, then Austin.
Okay.
And San Antonio was, like there's not a lot of photographers down there. So if you wanna make a killing as a pro photographer, go to San Antonio, man.
Yeah.
It's a hard market because the price you can charge is lower, but man, it's ripe for the picking if you're a hustler. But so it was like a super inviting area in San Antonio, and I got to take a bunch of pictures there.
Yeah.
And I knew a lot of the freshmen when I graduated college, so it was like I had 3 years there of like every time it came around, I was taking senior photos. So
Gotcha.
of just friends.
Oh,
But
okay,
I mean,
I see.
they were paying me, but it was still like friends, you know.
Yeah.
So, but going to Austin, I almost quit. I almost quit photography. My dad found at a pawn shop. He loves pawn shops, so he went to a pawn shop and he found these 2 film industry level tripods, and they were no joke $10,000 a piece.
Dang.
And they were selling them for $500 a piece. They just didn't know what they had or didn't care. I don't know. So I had enough saved up. I was like, we're buying them right now.
Yeah.
So we bought them, and then I sold them on eBay for I don't know, it was like $7,000. They were a little dinged up, so it was like give somebody else a break on them too. But
That's a pretty big turnaround in money right there.
yeah, for sure. So I had $6,000, and my dad said, I don't know what you had planned for that money, but you should get a nice professional camera, because I was using like a T4i. For those people who know, it's entry level. Those would be like, I could spend $500 and get that.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Less than that now, but anyway, so I finally got a fancy camera with it. He demanded I did, so I did, and it was $6,000, one of the hardest purchases I've ever made in my life.
I hear that.
I was like, that's how much I spent on my car.
How old were you at the time?
Oh man, this was when I first moved to Austin. I was 2 years there, 3 there, 2 there. So 7 years ago. So I was 25.
Yeah, that's a $6,000 purchase at 25.
At 25 years old, yeah. Not affluent. Had a lot of scholarships to go to the college I went to. So, yeah, that was, like I said, it was more than my car. My car I spent $2,000 on, so it was way more than my car.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that was sort of gut wrenching. I got that camera and I realized that it's not the equipment that makes you a good photographer. Real expensive way to find that out, and that was soul crushing, you know. And so I was like, I'm gonna sell this while it's still worth exactly what I paid, and I'm just gonna never take another picture. It was just destroyed.
So what was the challenge there? Like, what pushed you to almost quit?
So I was taking, quality wise, it would be like a T4i, I would say, gets one in focus picture out of every 100.
Wow. Okay.
And so it's like you're fishing for those moments. And then the ones that are in between, it's like everything's still blurry because the resolution's so low. It's like, I don't know. And then, you know, you have like these kind of blurry photos that if you put enough color in them, you could say are good.
Yeah.
But once you get that clarity in the pictures you're taking, it's like, oh, the entire frame needs to make sense. And so it went from like I'm taking a picture of a subject to like I'm taking a picture, you know, in plurality, right? I'm taking a picture and everything in my frame has to be golden for this for this to be a golden photo.
Right.
And so seeing my just subject and the expressions weren't as good because I wasn't really coaching anybody. It's like, it's blurry, right? Doesn't matter as much what expression they're making in my mind at the time, right?
Yeah,
It still does. It still does. But it was like I had enough excuses built into that piece of equipment that kept me from having to learn or do any of the hard stuff. So yeah, I just got super depressed. It's like I put, you know, all this effort. I think I had graduated when I was 22, 23. So, you know, I had just done, since I started college is when I started getting more serious. So I just done like 5 or 6 years of doing photography stuff, and I thought I was getting pretty good, and then this new camera sort of removed the veil, and I was like, oh shit, sucks.
So like, was it? Were you not making any revenue or not making any income now from that? Were you getting feedback that the pictures weren't good from your clients, or was this like just looking at your art, you were not proud and feel like it couldn't be presentable to your clients?
Oh, I see what you're asking. Okay, yeah, I kind of missed the point. I had just moved to Austin. That's the part I left out. So I didn't have any clients. I didn't have any income with my camera anymore. It was like I was 2 hours from San Antonio. I was 2 hours from Seguin. There wasn't anybody that I knew in the city. So it was like we just moved. We don't know anybody. And I have nothing to show for that I'm going to be proud of, that I can introduce into the Austin market, which is way, way, way more competitive.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's like I was feeling that like it's too big a step. And I didn't see a way forward with it to start making money again. But what happened was I got that camera, and there used to be a place called the Graffiti Park, which was dope.
Yeah.
So I think they've demolished it. But anyway,
I believe they did. You know, I'm pretty sure I saw something a couple years ago where they ended up like wiping it or demolishing it.
Yeah, worth a good Google. It's just like a bunch of old cement walls that they knocked down. But they were covered in graffiti, and it was like this weird place where people would just come hang out, and a lot of people smoke weed, but
it was one of the Keep Austin weird places. I know a lot of people in like high school, middle school, younger adults will just go and hang out there because of the vibe, I guess.
Yeah, no, it was beautiful. It was a great way to spend an afternoon. It's like a cool day. It's like there's gonna be people drinking beer. There's gonna be people playing music. Like there's just a great sort of weekend vibe there at all times. So it was wonderful. So I went there, and there was this guy doing like front flips over a picnic table. So I took pictures of him, and he heard my camera going, you know. And fate, fortuity, whatever, caused it to be like the perfect moments. If you have a camera that takes 7 and 9 frames per second, you're going to miss the moment every now and again because it just starts, the periodic photos are going to start and stop at the wrong moment.
Gotcha.
So a lot of like action people, it's like 22 to 30 frames per second.
Okay.
Anyway, so for whatever reason, it caught the perfect moments. Like he was left, and then he was upside down, and then he was right. And it was made this perfect T over the table. And he heard the camera, so he came over, and I showed it to him, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, these are amazing! Like I can't believe you caught that." I was like, "I can't either, but I'm not going to tell you that." And he happened to be the guy who had just, I think he had just bought at that time, the World Free Running Parkour Federation.
Oh, wow.
Or the World Federation of Parkour and Free Running, I think is what it is. Anyway, WFPF. And he had just bought it, and he lives in Hollywood. He's been in all kinds of TV shows, and like 1,001 Ways to Die, he was in that too.
Oh, cool.
Anyway, he's just been in tons of really cool stuff. And they were just setting up for a competition. They had just finished building a gym in Austin, and so that's what he was there for. But he was just taking a little R&R time, and they needed somebody to photograph a tournament.
Oh.
And so that one series of photographs is the only reason I had a photography business. Just that one happenstance moment of getting a job right there on the spot when I was like, I'm going to quit, you know?
Yeah. So you continued working with with him?
Yeah, I just did 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
Yeah, it's moved on to their USA Cup. I was going to go to Saudi Arabia for their World Cup before COVID, and then something with a sponsor fell through, and that was the money they were going to use for me. So anyway, it's turned into bigger and bigger events, and been a really long-term relationship. It's been cool. I've worked with a lot of cool people because of that. Like actually worked with Battle, if you're familiar with youth football in Texas. I'm not sure if it's a national brand now or not, but like,
oh yeah.
Pardon me, but Battle makes a bunch of football equipment, like youth football equipment.
Yeah.
I did a few videos for them. I've done, I don't know, it's a lot of like sports related stuff that sort of keeps the bills paid and the lights on. But
So you were able to, through, I only know them as the parkour guys.
yeah,
So through this parkour, that was kind of your big introduction into Austin.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was.
Gotcha. So from there, were you able to move outside of kind of sports and this parkour area? I know you said you worked with Battle a little bit. What are some of the other, I guess, people or other artists you were able to meet in Austin that I know you know? How did those relationships come about through? Yeah, how did those relationships come about?
It used to be bigger. It's like ATX Models was the hashtag, and it was sort of the Wild West on Instagram at the time, right? So all those things hadn't been clogged, so you actually did find people if you used hashtags. So it was like,
Right.
that's kind of where it started. I started trying to find other people who did what I did, and then I'm thinking of a lot of stories all of a sudden, but there was a guy, they just completed, it's more than 5 years because I met him like right when I moved there. So maybe I met him before. Anyway, he does these events called Sauce Market. His name's James. They just monetized them, so their events are going to be like paid from now on.
And
like,
what is Sauce Market?
Sauce Market is good question. It sounds
For those of us who have no idea.
we talked about it on the interview with Hawk not too long ago, but I guess a couple months ago now. But anyway, it's an event where photographers and models get together, and it's sort of like you have 5 minutes or less, more like a minute, to take a picture of a model, introduce yourself, and add them on Instagram. It's just networking, but it's like networking so fast.
Gotcha.
And it's really intimidating, especially like the older I get. It's like everybody is like starting out and they're in their 20s, and it's like, here I am in my 30s, and I'm still trying to meet people that way, you know.
Yeah.
But it's cool. I mean, that's how you meet people, doing what you do. But anyway, so that was one of the things where I met a lot of people, and ended up doing guided photography trips. We went to White Sands, New Mexico, and like I set up everything. We did like a road trip, and it was like I think it was a stop every 2.5 hours, 3 hours, and we'd go do a walk, and like there were models, photographers, and we'd go take pictures of the models in the locations, and keep on going. It was like a great bonding thing. I did that because of that that event. And it was just like a lot of really uncomfortable like cold calls, more or less, like messaging people on Instagram, or like just telling people I do photography when I was out walking in Austin. And it's like most people couldn't care less.
Right.
But every now and then you're like, oh yeah, I want to get into that. You meet somebody that does, and so I just kept building. I met my friend Brandon Gorey, who has his own podcast now, F11. He's doing with a friend of his. I wish I knew his name. Sorry. But F11, that's a cool podcast. But I met him while he was still in college, and we sort of bonded over the idea. I needed a male model, and he was modeling at the time.
Okay, yeah.
And we bonded over the fact that we both worked at HEB around then.
Oh,
and
that's funny.
And he's turned into a pretty prolific photographer in the Austin area. He is, in my mind, he is the fashion photographer for Austin right now. Like, he's the only one doing, like, I don't know, international level photo shoots in the Austin area. He's amazing at what he does. And I've taken pictures of Carolina Hildebrand, who is an actress. She's worked on like a sci-fi show with Danny Trejo, and she's worked on a bunch of other like short films and stuff. But I think like Sci-Fi Channel is probably the highest, and then so far, and then April. I can't think of her last name. Dang, it's been years since, because I just got back to Austin. But But anyway, she's been in national commercials so many times I wouldn't even know what brand to start with. Like she's consistently in these huge commercials. She does really well for herself. So I guess that's like the most notable. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it was always interesting whenever we would talk or like have gatherings, and you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna invite this person, or this person's gonna be here," and then I'd show up. I was like, "I have no idea who you are." Then you like start showing me their Instagrams. I'm like, "Oh man, these are like kind of big influencers that you know." So that was always very interesting.
I met the bassist for Disturbed. Because they were producing for a band that I shot for, Hannah Barracat. I love her music; she's really good.
Oh yeah,
but right. Yeah, he produces her music, and he's a real nice guy. And yeah, anyway,
I kind of wanted to touch on something that you talked about earlier briefly. So you worked on a show called Friday Night Tykes. What's that about?
It's here comes my pitch. You ready? I haven't done it in years. It's a reality show about Little League football in San Antonio, Texas. And the things that we highlight are bad parents and really this sort of abnormal reality that is youth football in South Texas. Technically it's Central Texas, but the pitch is South.
Yeah, gotcha.
So one quick story about Friday Night Tykes is that my first day on the job, basically there was a guy who used to go to the same college, TLU, and was dating somebody that I knew at the school. And I had an internship at a church, and he was filming a 6-minute promo video for the actual camp. It's called Luther Hill. Okay. And the kids had an activity, and we were both going for the same shot. Like, I didn't even know he was there, and then we started talking, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm dating Jessica," and I was like, "Oh, no way, I know her." His name is Ryan Anderson. He still runs his own business in San Antonio. He's doing great. Like, made it through COVID and everything. The entire time I've known him, he's been rocking and rolling as a camera guy. But he's amazing. But anyway, so I met him, and he was like, "I'm working on this show. It's brand new." They were going on to season 2, but this was like when they were getting picked up by Esquire, when that was still a channel. Anyway, he's like, they're looking for production assistants, apply. So I applied. My first day on the job, I'm walking onto the field. They have one of the younger kid divisions that are going. So we shot 9-year-old division, and then aged up with the same kids. Okay. But I think it was like the 6-year-olds were going. Yeah. And there's this incredibly fast little kid. He books it for a touchdown from like the 10-yard line on his side of the field. Right. Yeah. So he's hauling for a long way. Right. Running alongside him is his dad, cussing him out and telling him what a piece of shit he is. Oh my god! The whole way down the field. Wow. And that was my introduction to Friday Night Tykes. So like that basically is the show for me. Like it's such bad parenting, and it shows so many bad things, but I mean, there's really wholesome moments that are built into one of my friends while we were filming. Clayton Guillory is just a fantastic coach and a really good father figure for the kids and stuff. So like there's a lot of good stuff too. I don't want to dog on anybody who is in it, but there is definitely some people, everybody on there would admit there's some people on there that are flat out crazy and shouldn't have kids, and that's always going to be like the trailer moment that they use for TV.
Yeah, of course. So you said you walked on as a production assistant. Was that the first time you'd done something like that?
Yeah. I had no idea what I was doing.
What does that entail?
Oh, dude. Oh, it's terrifying. Because there's all these guys that I knew for a fact were making $800 a day to film this thing. And they have these big cameras that were like $75,000 a pop. Wow. And I mean, yeah, it was nuts. The amount of money and just, I don't know, it was way overwhelming. And as the production assistant, you're making sure people have water when they need it, people have snacks if they're hungry, and are able to eat while they're still filming and stuff. It's like, it's TV. There's not really scheduled breaks, and everybody has to do 10 hours or less. That's what they signed on for. That's why they get a day rate. Gotcha. So like for me, I'm carrying these big old camera batteries, I'm carrying snacks, I'm carrying release waivers to make sure anybody who walks in frame, signs this waiver so that we don't have to pay, I forget how much it was, to blur somebody's face out in the background, because that's expensive. So they're trying to cut down on overhead. So like I was not outspoken. I didn't like talking to people.
Yeah.
And I'm having to walk up to people who just happen to walk through on their way to some other place. I'm having to chase them down with my backpack and my big brim hat.
Oh my gosh.
And say, hey, can you sign this waiver for the TV show? And man, it was really intimidating. I was moving lights, setting up, so we're like, they always say run and gun, but it's like I'm taking these like big LED panels that are on their own tripods and like following the camera so that that they're filming has consistent light on one side of their face.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of whatever they need. And the longer you're on there, the more they ask you to do. So it's like I'm helping set up audio equipment or like mic people up or like, set up tripods, set up the scene. And then they promoted me to associate producer, and I was like interviewing people. I was just
interviewing like new people behind the scenes, or interviewing like in the show,
like talent is what they call them. But so I was interviewing people that are actually in the show. So
Gotcha.
I was the dude next to the camera. I was like, and then what did you feel about your son being tackled on the 20-yard line?
Gotcha. Sounds fun.
Yeah, it was really fun. But once they started to make it into a reality show. So when we started, it was a docudrama, right? So the only difference, anybody in TV knows, but like the difference is at first we weren't trying to narrate what was happening as a crew. And later the producers were like, okay, that happened and we have it on film. So now we're going to generate all this content that makes that look like it was important when it wasn't.
Gotcha.
So anyway, once you start doing the latter version, you're going to be doing a lot more 10-hour days.
Yeah. That sounds like
early on it was like 4 to 6 hours and we'd be out and we'd be paid day rate and we were living like kings. But later on it's like you're doing 10-hour days every time and everybody's tired and worn out. It's 6 months of 10-hour days. It's like,
so how many 6-month stints did you do?
I did 3 years in a row.
Oh, wow.
And then the show was too controversial to continue outside of Esquire, and Esquire channel was out of money. So they shut down the channel, and everybody else didn't want to touch the show at the 10-foot pole, which I think was probably the right decision because people were acting crazier by the year so that they could get more time on screen.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Because believe it or not, those little kids got paid.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was like not them directly because that's illegal. But,
right, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, show finds ways.
Right. Gotcha.
Anyway,
gotcha.
It's wild.
So what were some of the things that you were able to take from that show and move into your business moving forward? Not necessarily like your photography business, but as far as like any type of creative endeavors, what were some takeaways from working on this show?
I mean, one of them was that there is a lot more work you're allowed to put in than what you expect. Paperwork is huge. Organizing the paperwork is huge. I sort of just learned how a business ran and how like the business of Hollywood, not really Hollywood because it was a TV show and it wasn't scripted, but how the TV business worked. Sort of opened my eyes to that. And I don't know, I just learned how to run a camera, which was cool. One of the camera guys showed me a lot of things. He would always take phone pictures. He loved camera work.
Yeah. And
anytime he had a break, he'd just bust out his phone and start taking a bunch of pictures. And he would show me. He did a travel show with Captain Kirk. What's his name? From Star Trek.
Oh,
the original one.
Man, I cannot think of his name.
Anyway, so he did a show with him, and that was one of his favorite stories because they were getting on a boat, and he just reflexively said, like, "You ready to set off, Captain?" And like totally ticked him off because he thought he was referencing Star Trek. And he was like, "You will not call me that again." And he gets on the boat and like just ignored him for the rest of the,
Man.
And it was like, I'm sure he'd been just battered with that. With Star Trek for years. Like, It feels like an overreaction, but I'm sure anyway.
Yeah.
But that was one of his favorite stories because he's like, he totally understood and he was cool with it. And
Yeah.
he was like, yeah, I had a good time on that show. But anyway, he'd been in the biz a long time, and he was like, yeah, check out this angle. Have you ever tried doing this? You know, and it was like, I learned a lot about photography from him. Dave Frederick was his name. I think he's retired now. Great guy.
Gotcha. Does that make you look at TV shows any differently now?
Yeah. Every reality show is scripted.
Yeah.
FYI. I had so many people get mad at that, but it is a fact. They say, well, it's not scripted. The reason they say that is because the producers have a piece of paper that they write down story beats on. And then they tell people to say, like, however you think this feels natural, say, I hate you, Karen. You know?
Oh, man.
That's 100%. That's what happens. So they can say it's not scripted because there's no script, but someone is telling the talent what to say.
Gotcha.
Anyway, yeah, that's my soapbox.
Well, that is interesting. You know, I almost forgot to bring that up, and that was really cool. So I know that photography is a big part of your life. You know, you've taken pictures for us before as well. But I know also that you dabble in a lot of different art forms. I know we talk a lot about writing here, and, you know, we have the interview with Shannon talking about, I guess, illustration, painting, and drawing. What are some of the other arts you dabble in?
Well, first of all, how great was that interview with Shannon? Man, she is really insightful. That was great. But I don't know. Every kind of art I see, I try at least once, I think. I've done airbrushing. Pastels is still on my list. But I mean, like, I do wood burning, and I've done wood burning for a long time. I like painting, but I'm not very good at blending colors. I like drawing, especially with, I just found a great deal on Copic markers, man. You knew I was going to say that too. I got them like 80% off because a local store here, Hobby Lobby, I guess it's local. Is it local? Well, anyway, I always felt like it was. I love Hobby Lobby. Anyway,
it's got a local vibe to it. I don't think it is.
Well, that's embarrassing. Anyway, Hobby Lobby.
Our local Hobby Lobby.
They were getting rid of Copic markers a while ago, and they had them for 80% off, and I got a whole kit for. I mean, that was dope. Anyway, so and I've sang and written music my whole life. I don't know, photography. I've written my whole life. I really enjoy writing. I can't seem to get over the hump with it to a finished product, but man, I love it. I'm trying to think. I mean, there's so much. Like, I like woodworking. I've been working on your table lately.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot. I can't really think of it right now.
No, that was pretty much everything I thought that you were going to say.
Nice.
But man, that's still awesome that you challenged yourself to get into so many different arts at least once. Why do you say that? Why would you try everything once?
Well, there's something that I believe very deeply, and that's that anyone can do anything if they sort of put in the time to observe it. And you know, not at a world-class level, but it's like you can participate at a really high level in a very short amount of time, and everything that you do applies to everything else, and everything that you do benefits you in some way. And so anytime I see a new piece of art, it's like I'm going to take a minute to learn. I'm going to take a minute to understand what the parameters are, and then I'm going to try it. And I think it's, I don't know, it's so cool. Like I'm Christian, and I try to not always. I don't want to inject that to the point that it's annoying. But you know, I feel like, to answer this question thoroughly, is like I feel like reality is here to be experienced, and to the level that you have the energy to experience it. There's so many cool things, and so I try to, you know, like kid in a theme park. Like I love getting to make art or participate in new things, and so I try to do that as much as I can.
Man, that's one of the things that inspires me a lot, is seeing you really challenge yourself, pushing yourself into woodworking, because like that's, art is just something you can either draw, it's on a piece of paper, or wood burning even, it's still like a piece of wood. But when you got into woodworking, I was impressed, shocked, like I said, inspired, because now you're actually like creating something that could maybe go right or wrong, but that's still like, the act of creating and sawing stuff and putting stuff together and putting a diagram together. At some point you made our dining room table. How did that like come about in your head to even do?
Well, first of all, credit where credit is due. I had pushed myself in photography, but I hadn't really tested the limits of my other artistic abilities until we started playing D&D. And I was like, oh, like things that I do actually have an effect. And it's like I can do something that people will appreciate, actually. I feel like a lot of growing up was like being dismissed for my artistic tendencies. It was almost like my family thought, well, Henry thinks way too much of himself. And it was like I would draw something and I would run and show my parents.
Yeah.
And it was like I thought it was the greatest thing because I just put all this time and effort into it, which as a kid was probably like 15 minutes. And they were terrible.
Right. Yeah.
But I was really excited to share them. And so they're like, well, Henry's developing kind of an ego. We need to curtail this, right? So I suppressed that enough to get through my childhood, and then I hadn't really messed with it other than photography until we started doing D&D. And then it was sort of like, oh, people appreciate this, and it was off to the races, honestly. And the thing about woodworking, since you mentioned it, so and that point, thank you very much for allowing me that and showing me that was a possibility for life. My life is better for it, so very much appreciate that. But the cool thing about woodworking and the difficult thing about it is there's so much three-dimensional understanding of what you're doing that it takes to make something.
Yeah, for sure.
And to design something. So that table I designed from scratch. I did it in 3 days, and I didn't write anything down in that time. Like I watched so many YouTube videos on how to build things, and I was like, yes to that part, no to this part, and I was just moving so quickly. My wife could attest. I paced through our house for like 6 to 8 hours a day for 3 days.
Yeah,
and I was just thinking and had my phone in front of me. I was watching YouTube videos on how to do each of these things until I had a pretty good idea what the plans were.
Yeah.
Fourth day, I drew up the plans, and then the next day, I'm pretty sure I called you up and said, hey, is this something you want? So like we were playing Dungeons and Dragons a lot, and it was like, pardon me, a gaming table. They were all the rage. I think Wormwood just started promoting their tables.
I think like towards the end of like us actually like helping and putting I think like the finish on the wood when we were helping with that, I saw that Wormwood had announced that they were going to be putting their own game tables out.
Gotcha. Yeah, so it was around that time.
Yeah.
And
you were ahead of the curve.
Yeah, a little bit. That was sort of the inspiration that went into it. I was like, we had put in so many hours into our campaign, and I, like I said, I was just getting inspired, and I was like, I want something that's going to benefit all of us together, and kind of make a gift that allows us to participate in a way that is enriching to everybody. And I think what you've done with it since it got finished, I mean, it's been super cool too. Yeah. And I think, I don't know, that's another cool part of the creative process is like, it's exponential in every single way. And it's, so you gave us D&D, and then from that we started creating. My wife is prolific gift giver and
yes,
and
absolutely.
baker, and she's just the sweetest person, and and I mean Molly is too, but
Yes, she is.
and she's I don't know, it's like everything of that. Every time somebody brought something new, it's like it brought the group to a new place, and it brought the art a little bit further along, and it was just an honor to be able to participate in that. And then you guys helping out, like sanding the table, and everybody getting a little logo and wood burning in our little insignia for our party. It was all really cool. And
I almost wore the shirt today too.
I should have.
Yeah.
But so I mean, details wise, making the table was a lot more in depth, but like I don't think we want to get bogged in the details of that necessarily.
No, like I said, it was super inspiring to see, you challenge yourself to do something that big. Were there any, I'm sure there were, but were there any fears that it was going to go wrong and that this was going to be a terrible idea, a terrible table?
My mental health was a lot worse then, so that was constant. But I mean, to be fair, up until that point, and I think this is illustrative of what kind of person I am, for better or worse, I had built 3 boxes, wood boxes, before that table.
Yeah.
Nothing in my life said I had what it took to build a table.
Yep.
And especially not to design one from scratch. And there were definitely some load-bearing issues that we had to work out again later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it turned out great. But I mean, the whole time through, I think every day I worked on it, I had to spend about 15 to 20 minutes before I got started telling myself that A, I wanted the finished product, and B, I could do it. I had enough people to call on. My dad built his own garage. The same basic thing, right? Like he had never built a building before, and he was like, yeah, I could do it. So anyway, I knew I had him I could call on if things got dicey.
Gotcha. Well, that's awesome. I kind of want to move again back to some of your college days. Recently, your wife showed us a video of you doing improv comedy.
Man, I do not want to talk about that.
Well, there's a myriad of reasons why I want to bring it up. But how'd you get into that? How'd you get roped into doing stand-up comedy for a little bit?
Well, it was partially accepting a challenge from a classmate. Because I was I don't know, I was homeschooled, and so I really came out of my shell for college. I was like, I'm going to talk to everybody. I was a bit of because I was homeschooled, I was a bit of a goody-goody, and I was a bit of a suck up to the teachers, because I was like, holy shit, I actually have teachers. This is great. I can ask them anything I want anytime, and they'll talk to me during class, and like, this is awesome. So it's like, that's very much teacher's pet, right?
Yep.
And so I had this one guy in a dramatic media class, and his name was Kevin. And Kevin's a cool dude, and he's really good at his stand-up, and he's really good at what he does in short films, and I have no idea what he's doing now. We're not friends, but I think he's a cool dude. Yeah. Whatever. We were definitely not friends then. And so he was better at making the short films that we were making for the class than I was. But I was the class favorite. Gotcha. And so that chafed him to no end. He hated that. And so it was like any chance he had to get a dig in or to talk about how good he was at stand-up comedy, he would. Yeah. And so like, it was both of us acting out of our own self-consciousness or self-loathing or whatever. But anyway, I finally got annoyed, and I was like, fuck it, I'm doing stand-up comedy, and I'm going to do it at least as good as he does. Yeah. And so I watched a bunch of comics, I think for maybe a month. I just watched stand-up specials in my room after class. And then the inspiration finally struck of this super awkward moment I had walking back from the gym, going to dinner after practice one day. And so I literally did not sleep the night before and I paced around my room. I wrote it down as I planned it out, the jokes, and I got the timing right, and I made sure that my steps, posture, pauses. I did everything the night before.
Yeah.
It was like 7 a.m. I took like a 30-minute nap, so I guess I did sleep some. And then that night we had this thing called Coffee House. You could do whatever you wanted for 5 minutes. It was just meant to be entertaining.
Oh, okay.
And so it was like 40 to 70 people, depending. Not a big group. Anyway, so I got up on stage. And
40 to 70 people is a pretty big group, not going to lie.
Fair enough. So got up on stage, did my thing. It was like the first minute and a half. And anybody who's ever done stand-up knows a minute and a half of silence is rough. And it was my first time, so it was brutal. It was just dead silent for the first minute, and then it was like the first joke, I really buried it in there. The first joke hit, and there was this one kid with a really unique laugh that I went to school with, and he sort of cackled at the back of the room.
Yeah.
And then that sort of set the whole thing off, and people started laughing. It was a good time.
Yeah, I think once you're like, there's this one guy who can laugh, and as we were watching, or who had a distinctive laugh, and as we were watching, you could kind of see like you were nervous, but once you heard that, you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to finish this, damn it.
Yeah, I had a baseball cap on that was covering my eyes, so I couldn't see anybody. Like oh man, I was so nervous. My hands are sweating just talking about it.
Oh man. So, part of the reason I bring it up is we do talk a lot about improv as far as D&D goes, but I mean, there's a lot of creativity that comes with doing stand-up comedy, even if it's just once. What were some of the big experiences that you were able to take away from that and learn from that?
I mean, one of them is just that overcoming your fears is worth it. And one of them, and this is, I think, the most important thing that I learned from it, was that starting something is worth it. I started it for the wrong reasons. I was like trying to show off to one of my classmates, but anyway, what I learned from it and the self-confidence I got from just taking on something I had no business doing, and actually getting a laugh, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Was way better than maybe the intentions of beginning should have allowed. But just because I participated and overcame that voice in my head that was like, run out. Like right before they called me, I knew I was like second or third, because they would tell you, hey, you're on deck. And I was like, I'm going back to my dorm then.
Yeah.
But just overcoming that was like, maybe I can do anything. And that was well worth learning. If you're asking more specifically about doing comedy, I would say I learned it was way more difficult than I thought it was. That the structure of joke is way different than conversational. So like it was a battlefield with me and my siblings growing up. It's like sarcasm central, and if you're not super quick-witted, you're not in the conversation.
Yep.
And so I had to be on my toes all the time, and it's way different on stage unless you're doing crowd interaction.
Right.
But yeah, those are the things I learned about that. And I also learned that that I'm not that type of person.
Yeah, I mean,
which is also a valuable thing to learn. It's like, this is not my passion. It's like I could do it borderline forgettably. Like I could get a laugh, but nobody's going to be like, oh, I can't wait to see their special.
Right. Yeah.
But it's just not where my passion lies in terms of art. And that was a cool thing to learn too.
Gotcha. So we just finished, talking about improv and how you didn't want to talk about it. But, one of the things that you learned was, kind of overcoming that fear of doing something you don't necessarily want to do, still doing that, and then knowing, this is or isn't what you want to do. Kind of brings up one of the last topics I wanted to bring up was how to phrase this. You're in a band,
Yeah, I am. I think you know who with.
Yeah. So you're in a band with my wife called the Molly Moon Band.
That is right.
So what? I feel like there's a lot of fear that had to be overcome with that. How did that start? How did you start that process of actually, forming this band and eventually putting songs out?
Well, there's a lot of different answers to that question. So I put out 2 CDs by myself, my own name, me doing all the instrumentation, even though I can't keep rhythm to save my life. But I put out 2 CDs, one in high school, one in college. And I put that out for sale. I did coffee shops. I played open mics. Like I've done, I actually got second place in a talent show.
Oh, nice.
Anyway, the one who got first did a beautiful poem. So, I mean, I wasn't even mad at it. I was like, that's not even an option. I'm not getting first, but I got second. So, anyway, I've been doing music a lot. So,
when did you start doing music?
I want to say, let's see, I was probably 12. So, my second to oldest sister and my dad both played guitar, and it sounded cool. They did it often enough that I was like, yeah, they've got something there. But but I never participated in it. And when I was 12 years old, I asked my dad. I was like, while we were talking, and I said, I'd love to play guitar, but it's way too tough. Like, if there was an easier way to play guitar, I think I would pick it up.
Yeah.
And it was like the next week, another pawn shop purchase. He was very thrifty.
Yeah.
Still is.
Yeah.
I had a bass guitar.
Oh,
So,
nice.
One of these came not too far after. It's the one on the left.
Oh, okay.
For the people who aren't in the room, I've got my guitars are up on the wall.
We'll put them on the social later.
Yeah. Anyway, I learned how to play guitar on bass, and I played from 12 to 16. All I played was bass guitar. And then at 16, my dad had an unattended acoustic guitar, and I started playing around on that and figuring it out. And I think it was, I don't know, it was maybe a month later I'd written my first song on it.
Oh, nice.
I think I wrote probably 40 songs, and then I put out the first CD. I recorded it. My dad had like a recorder in the room, but it was like an 8-track, I think is what they're called. So like if you mess up, you have to redo the whole thing.
Yeah.
If you mess up once, like on the outro, you're toast. I had one of those, and so I just spent way too much time there because I was homeschooled. Like I spent so much time playing music. It took maybe 2 hours a day to do my schoolwork, and then the rest of the day was mine. And I would just be back there playing guitar, sort of super unstructured, but just writing music about girls that wouldn't talk to me mostly.
Copy that.
But yeah, so that was my history of music. My dad was in a band when he was a kid, and back when Heart of Texas Music was a thing. It's a big music store in Austin. He would go there a lot. He builds his own amps, so he knew the folks there, and
Gotcha.
and they all had bands, and so we'd go to concerts a lot. We would just be around music a lot. So that's kind of how I got excited about it.
Gotcha. And you said you were playing, you've been playing coffee shops and different places through college?
Yeah. I don't know. The last one was 6 months ago. I played at the bar in King Salmon before I moved from Alaska.
Oh, yeah. No, that's one of the things. Again, just another thing that I, enjoyed when our friendship was you just in moments of a pause or a food break in D&D, you would grab the guitar off the wall and start playing, and it was like it kind of reinvigorated all of our love of music, and we kind of bonded over this. My wife is a musician as well, which is why she's a part of the band.
Well, you know what made me mad? Okay.
You tell me.
Okay, so what was it now? 3 years ago? We've known you guys for, it's got to be 5 years,
Yeah,
something like that. 6 years, I don't know. It's been almost half a decade. Let's just say half a decade.
Yeah, it's closer
intense.
to 5 years because we started playing D&D. We're in year 3 going to year 4, but before that I did training, personal training at both of our wives' old job, for 2 years. So
yeah,
it's been around 5 years, and I think we've met before that or something like that.
And so yeah, I mean, we knew each other for a while, and it wasn't till like knowing you for 2 or 3 years, I never knew your wife sang.
Mm-hmm.
And then like one day we got over there, like I think we got over there super early, which is a surprise for us.
Yeah.
And your wife is on the piano, which I didn't know she played that either.
Yep.
And so that was the first thing. I was like, "You play piano?" And she's like, "Yeah, I used to be in choir." I was like, "What?"
Yeah, we were both in choir for a long time, and she kind of has the same path as you as far as like guitar, or I guess for her is more so piano, and a little bit of guitar because she knows how to play a little bit. But yeah, she's also written a ton of songs. But yeah, no, we didn't say anything.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. And so, like, we just walk in, I'm blown away, and it's like, well, like, why don't we play together ever? And then it was sort of like, well, we didn't know what to play together, and then we sort of learned each other's songs a couple of times, and it was still, like, kind of awkward, because I think we're both just, I don't know, a little bit awkward about it, because we were both kind of out of practice. And anyway, so it was like within 6 months we'd written 5 songs, and we're like, well, we should record this somewhere. And the recording part, first of all, it's been wonderful writing with Molly, and she like, I can reliably write half of a song. And so that makes it great having another person, because she can reliably write half of a song also. I know she can do more than that, and I can do more than that, but it goes so much faster if you each do your own parts. And it's just worked out really good, and it went so quickly. It was really inspiring and wonderful, and she's grown so much. Like, we have our second CD that was supposed to come out like 6 months ago, a year ago almost. And anyway, that's not giving it enough credit. 3 months ago it was supposed to come out. Anyway, so it's gonna come out, and I finally started hearing stuff, and just like her growth and projection and feeling comfortable is exponentially better, and it's so cool to see. And I think mine is too, from one to the other. Just hearing other members of the band, which brings me to the other part of the story, which is I was on tour, with Hannah Barakat, who again is a musician in the Austin area who you should look up. She's got dope music. It's like a Middle Eastern flair to like metal. It's really cool, and she's got an amazing voice. I think she went to Berkeley Music or something, so it's like she's really musically savvy and just like a smart, enjoyable person. Anyway, so I was on tour with her, and her bassist has edited music his whole life. So he was like, it was another one of those, like, we were on tour, it was like the 5th day, and we're all stuffed in this van, we're just like, there's nothing to talk about. And I was like, I've done music before, you want to hear a couple songs off of my second CD? He's like, sure, whatever, yeah. Like, not excited about it, like nobody's excited about anything 5 days into a tour, I feel like. But anyway, so he listened to it, and he's like, dude, I would love to mix this. It's like, I didn't know you did that. And he was like, yeah, absolutely, like, get some songs together, this is about what I charge, get some songs together, and we'll work together. It's like, dope. And then her guitarist at the time, Anthony Bassini, that's Carson Carter, and his business name is Velopod. Just make sure that's out there. It's also in the credits on our Spotify. But anyway, so Anthony Bassini, who's an insane guitarist, insane. I mean, he would be, if he had enough time, he would be the headliner all by himself. Like, he's just amazing at what he does.
I got to hear him in a session before recording. I think y'all were going to record the next day, and I got to hear all three of y'all, tinker around with actually having him there playing and strumming the parts. Oh, incredible.
Yeah.
Just the whole process, everything was incredible. Like, you laid down kind of a foundation, he did his thing, and you can really see like there are levels of he's achieved a level of mastery with guitar.
Dude, he's amazing. If you think you know guitar, go listen to him. I mean, he teaches it too, and it's like he makes teaching seem simple too, and it's like, oh man, he's phenomenal at everything he does. Anyway, yeah, he's achieved the level of master. So those are the people that we've been able to make this band with, and we're a recording band, not necessarily a pplaying out band yet.
Yeah.
Though we're working up to that. And anyway, they just do some amazing stuff, and it's like they're just their casual observations. Like, we have one on the new CD that was like this sort of mournful reflection on how time is impermanent. Our now is impermanent, but we're always in it, right? Yeah. And so we're recording it, and then like Carson just looks up from the computer and he goes, "This sounds kind of Hawaiian." And then he puts his headset back on and goes back to what he's doing. It's like it's not anything. But then like we re-recorded all of my singing parts and I think my guitar too. To make it sound more Hawaiian. And it's like I just heard the cut of that, and man, it's so much better for that. And like, these guys are just so smart. It's like I feel, and Molly, her voice is so beautiful, and it's like her writing sense is really there. And it's like she just, I don't know, she pushes the boundaries of her writing so far, and now that she's like pushing her music, like singing that far too, and like even the piano parts, it's like, man, I'm gonna be like the court jester of this group before too long.
Don't sell yourself short. There's a lot of planning, and your voice is really, really great. It really carries a lot. But yeah, don't sell yourself short, man.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, but it's like they're. I don't mean it as much detrimental to myself as I do as like I'm just in awe of these people, and I'm really excited to be in a band with them. And I think, like, that we've been talking about collaboration, I think, so much throughout this, that's the coolest part of art to me, is that I can make these little communities, and I can support and encourage artists that I'm just blown away by. And it's sort of like they hang out with me, and they'll give my art a shot too. And I'm always in these situations where I'm surrounded by like just absolutely brilliant people, and I don't know how I got there, but it's like I'm really happy I am there, and I'm really happy like I get to keep making music.
I think part of how you've gotten here, from my perspective, is you don't really put up with a lot of the bullshit. People that just tout a lot of like, BS and don't really, I don't want to say doing much with their lives, but they're kind of like living like the 9 to 5, and there's not a lot of like artistic creativity stuff going on with them.
Like the hype crew, is that what you mean? Like this is a group of people. Like when I moved to Austin, just for example, is like there was like 20 people that were like, they just all bought Sony A7s because they'd known each other for years, and they're like, bro, let's do it. And then it was like they just sort of followed each other around, hyping each other up.
Yeah, exactly.
But they didn't make anything of it. They weren't trying to sell anything. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I mean, even that, but more so like, you don't, if someone's not doing something, I guess, man, it's kind of tough to put into words. You find the people that are actually trying to do something artistic, and you lift them up, and by doing that, they reciprocate the love that you gave them, and are able to help enhance your creativity and your artistic endeavors, right? Like Anthony, again, amazing artist, guitar player. You encourage him, you tell him, he's at this level of mastery, and in turn, like, you're so genuine with it that he in turn is like, yeah, dude, I'll throw down, guitar for you, like, no big deal, like, you still paid him, but it was like,
Probably less than he's worth, but
yeah. People, the genuine love that you have for art, you see it. We talked about how your wife is a gift giver, but you are too, of like time, energy, and boosting those people up. I tell you now, like, I wouldn't be where I'm at as far as like, creating D&D stuff, running campaigns for people. I mean, I never would have saw myself, what was it, 3 weeks ago, that I ran a 7-person, 6-person, something like that, D&D session. But because like you were able to like lift me up and encourage me through the DM screen, through the table, through your time, I was able to actually, do that and reciprocate that, because I'm not a gift giver. How I give is my time and my energy, because I know that's limited. So
thank you for that description. I mean, that's very kind. I think, I don't know, it's nice to hear that because it's validating. Because I love creating stuff, and I love getting to see what other people create. And it's for the same reason I talked about earlier. Again, I don't want to beat you over the head with the fact that I'm Christian. It's everybody's personal decision. But for me, it's like, for me, creativity is getting to act out what God did when he created the world, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's sort of like our ultimate freedom in my mind, is like, this is our ultimate participation in reality, is getting to create. And getting to see what other people do is like, I mean, it's like little mini miracles, and it's so beautiful, and it's like, it's overwhelming. And the cool thing about it is each person has an extremely unique way they go about it, and place that they arrive at. And it's like, I feel like when I'm done with my portion of, say, a song, once I've written it and I have a basic melody, I feel like my part is done. And then I present it to the group I'm with, and I let them go to nuts. If Anthony's like, I feel like there'd be a good guitar part right there, and I'm like, okay, well, let me play it where there's space for you to do a guitar part, because that kind of creation is what really, it's allowing other people the grace to be as great as they are, is what I always try to embody. It's like, I know what I want, and I know that what I want is never going to be as good as what the group can make. And so I try to remind myself that once I take ownership of something, and I'm like, no, we can't change that. And I felt that a couple of times when we were recording last. I was like, no, that's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted. And then I luckily caught myself before I said anything. And I was like, what you want is not as good as what you can end up with. So I just caught myself in time and let them do what they do best. And it's always better than me. And getting to participate in these big groups, 4 people, but still a big group, is really, really enriching. And I would say I've never really done drugs. Again, I was homeschooled, but but that's what I picture it being like. If you were to equate drugs to like this sort of out of body experience that's like Nirvana-esque, that's what it is, creating in groups to me, because it's like I contribute a little bit and it goes so far, and it's like you can almost see the evolution of an idea in front of you happening now, which is a beautiful thing to see. Anyway.
No, that is beautiful. That's awesome. I had a couple other questions here, but man, I feel like you went pretty deep on these last couple of questions. So
I'm happy to if you want.
I
know
think
we're
I
getting
wanna
long.
I wanna wrap up, and we've learned a
20
lot
minutes.
about what'd you say?
20 minutes over an hour. We should. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
my bad.
We'll start. No, it's fine. It's fine. We'll start wrapping up. I hope you guys who are listening kind of saw a little insight on Henry and kind of his path to even get here to podcasting, and knowing that you can start new things whatever age you're at, whatever part of life you're in, but it just takes effort and energy. I was inspired by you playing guitar, and to hear that it's something you put a lot of effort and energy in, was exciting to hear, and it kind of makes sense. But then, like, wood burning, woodworking, those are new skills, and being willing to go out of your comfort zone to learn those new skills is also inspiring. And to know you're not stuck. I feel like I won't ever see you, as long as you keep this mindset, I don't ever see you getting stuck creatively, because you have pushed yourself and pushed your boundaries so much on so many different things that you can continue to improve on those things, which will help you be even more creative on the other things. It's very inspiring. It's very inspiring.
Thank you. I got one thing I want to add, since you said that, and then by all means wrap out. But like, since we equated it back to the podcast, not only if you expand your horizons like you're talking about, then there's always some place in your life where you have something under your control that you can move the goalpost.
Mm-hmm.
And life is tough.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have moments that you can make a little bit of progress, even when times are hard. Like, I just got a job. Since I moved back, I haven't had anything. It's been 4 months of just sort of trickling in money. And we prepared for that, but I mean, it's still difficult going through it. Probably too much information, but there you have it. So I had plenty of hobbies and things that I could fall back on and say, I made progress in this. I made incremental steps. I can still find something to feel good about myself. And that has been an invaluable thing that I've learned. And the point of this podcast, and the reason that it keeps going for me, and I'm gonna switch to a zoom in of me for Spotify. But the reason I keep doing this is because I wholeheartedly believe that anyone can achieve anything that they set out to do. And there is not enough optimism in the world in general, and there's not enough people telling people that they matter enough to go after their goals, that they are good enough inherently, that they matter, that they're absolutely to their core valuable people, and that what they want matters, and that they can create something beautiful. And so that's why I show up here, is because I want to make sure that people are out there, especially the artist crowd, who I would say is almost stereotypically depressed. No offense, me too. So I want to be there and be a voice for the positive and say, you can do it. I'm out here struggling with my art, same as you, and we can keep moving ahead together. And you can count on that. I'm going to be out here creating as uninhibited as I can, even though I'm scared, even though I'm nervous. I'm going to be out here pushing the goalpost every way I can, every day I can. And I'm out here in the trenches with you. So that's why I'm here, and that's why I want to keep creating.
Well, sounds good. Thank you, Henry, for an amazing interview.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And that's going to be a wrap for this. Follow us on the Creative Thinker Podcast on Instagram, Creative Thinker Podcast on YouTube. That is CRTV And that's just it for Instagram, right?
CRTVTHNKR.
Wow. Brain fart. And then that's CRTV.
It's right behind you on the wall, bro.
Man, wow. Total brain fart right there. CRTVTHNKR podcast on YouTube and on Spotify to see our beautiful faces and see Henry tear up a little bit. That's all we have for you guys this week.
Creative thinkers all over the globe. Take care. Bye-bye.